Ba-ba-da-ba. We are here and live. Everyone, welcome to our 10th episode of Everything Teams Phone Live with Brandon and myself, both from G12 Communications. Thanks for hopping on, everyone. We got a couple of special guests today. I'm excited to introduce them. But first of all, Brandon, is it morning, afternoon?
It's good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of
Depends
our
on where you're
listeners
at.
around the world. Yep.
That's right.
Evening
Around
or
the
good.
world. How cool is that we are broadcasting live, literally around the world, anywhere you're at, with a click of a button? That's spectacular. It's like your own TV show. How crazy is that they give me access to this stuff?
I could shut it down if you want.
Hey. All right. So, everyone, welcome. Quick introductions. Everyone, you probably, if you're a listener to the channel or if you've seen our show before or seen the invites, I'm Rick Garcia, G12 Communications. We've got in the other corner there, we've got Mr. Brandon Bradley. Brandon, what do you do for G12?
I currently am the janitor, also known as the CTO, running all the
Yeah,
technology.
he does some technical stuff. It's
Yeah.
like wires and stuff. And then we've got some really special guests today. We've got Mr. Tim Jones joining us and Michael Martell. Now, both these gentlemen, welcome to the show, guys. It's a real pleasure to have both of you on. Both of you I know pretty well, as today you're existing customers of G12. Shh, let's not share. So that's exciting. This is definitely not going to be a partial or impartial discussion, because as soon as Tim or Michael says something that's negative in any way, shape, or form, I can hit the mute button. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Well, hey, from New York, back at you. That's awesome. Welcome. All right. So let's do this. We're going to get into a quick discussion. So, Tim, why don't you kick things off and tell us what you do and all that. Just a real quick, let me give everybody context. Both these gentlemen utilize Teams phone, but go ahead, Tim.
I'm the director of IT for Plymouth Housing Group. We're a local nonprofit. We migrated to G12 6 months ago when I joined the company. I've also been with another credit union, and we did the migration about 3.5 years. Well, they did the migration, no longer me, 4.5 years ago, 3.5 years ago, something like that, right before COVID.
So you've done 2 migrations with us.
I've done 2 migrations, and both have been fabulous.
That's fantastic to hear. Fantastic to hear. Excellent. Michael?
I don't want to be muted.
Yeah, I'm Michael Martell. I'm a senior consultant with Parametrics. Parametrics is an engineering design firm. We do bridges, roads, water systems, all things like that. And we're a consulting firm, so hence the title. But basically, I manage end user computing, which includes like the service desk. We get all the tickets. We deal with phone system problems, computer problems, software problems. We have about 770 end users. We did a conversion from a standard VoIP a legacy system over to Teams in 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic.
That's interesting. That's, there was quite a few organizations that were really struggling to figure out what to do during that time. It seemed like nothing was really fully baked for an organization that was secure and solid and easy to manage and easy to deploy. But you found us.
If you're interested, the thing was, of course, 2020 was just chaos. We really had the systems in place. We had the VPNs. We were actually dabbling with virtual computers before the pandemic, which made it really easy for us to switch people over. But our contract to our legacy phone system came due in 2021, and we were looking to do something different. And at first, we thought that we'd have a real struggle with people moving away from a physical phone to just using Teams on their computer. And it turns out after a year of everybody being at home, not going anywhere, just using Teams for chat, people were used to it, and using Teams for internal calls. So when we took away almost everybody's phones, we took away all phones, but about 6 for the um, office manager types. Um, it I think maybe one person asked for a phone, and after discussing with them, we didn't give them one. Um, it it was pretty smoothless. Seamless. I mean, it went very well.
And
It-
Michael, did you find the user adoption was welcomed? Did the users gravitate towards that, for the most part, or was there a lot of resistance? Or was it
Well,
a combination of pandemic, I guess I'm being forced to do this, so I'll just
I,
take it? Like, what was your perception of that?
I think they get used to it. I think they get used to it because they've been chatting and doing internal calls at home the whole time. Um, they were just used to calling using Teams. Now, another factor of this
Okay.
is the fact that you can put Teams on your cell phone, and that's a big thing for us. And that way, our consultants, our project managers, everybody can take work phone calls on their cell phone, but not expose their own personal number. That was a big thing that you could always forward your number to your cell phone, but then if you called them back, your own number would show up. That's problematic for especially our 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 women engineers. People just don't want their number out there, and the fact that you can run Teams on your phone and take calls just like being in the office, that was a huge plus for people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really convenient. It's interesting how the single pane of glass has become kind of the gold standard now of a system, and what we're seeing, and this is a bit future here, but what we're seeing and what we think is happening, and it's probably exactly where Microsoft is intending this to go, but what we're seeing is that the single pane of glass that is Teams becomes more like a business operating system now. So you've got Windows as your PC operating system, and now you see Teams becoming your business operating system, in that more and more applications are available directly in the Teams. More and more communication services are directly available in Teams. And that becomes that I can do everything. If I'm popping a screen for a CRM, or if I can bring some of those things right into my Teams environment, so I don't leave that team screen. Right. So that's,
Exactly.
and this is one of the things that, and we're going to go through in just a few minutes, the Forrester report that came out. I know this is probably the third week in a row that we mentioned the Forrester report. We've got some new information that we're going to show on the screen here in a little bit about this Forrester report, but it really shows the value of savings when it comes to, or the value of productivity. And what they've done is they quantified the productivity to a dollar amount, and they calculated that across, I think, Brandon, was it 5 years or so? And they've given you a savings, a total cost of ownership, a payback, timeline, and they've given us some really good information. And this was really everything that we do, gentlemen. Everything that we do in this particular show, whether we have senior leaders like you guys on, or we have other vendors on, everything that we do is because we want to understand how you're working in an enterprise. Everything that Microsoft is building is to support you guys in an enterprise. So it's a real pleasure to have you guys on and share your feedback today. This is super exciting. I really look forward to the remainder of this discussion. Tim, how did your deployment go, Tim?
Well, my first deployment, we went straight to G12 without Teams. This was pre-COVID. Teams was something that we all kind of heard about, but nobody had used. And in that movement, it went really smoothly. We were coming off of an on-prem VoIP system, but very very old. It was intended to be retired 6 months before we actually did retire it. But the process was good. And then once we got on that system, about what was it? It was probably 6 months in, we hit COVID. And when we hit COVID, G12 came to us and said, "Why don't you look at migrating this to Teams? You're going to be using that environment. It wasn't a you're using it yet because we hadn't quite gotten there, but it was a you're going to be using this environment. And so Rick worked with us. Rick's team worked with us, and we migrated onto Teams, and it was also very smooth. I don't think any of our users actually noticed the difference, other than the fact that their Teams started ringing instead of the soft phones that we had installed.
How was your adoption rating of Teams? Like since Teams was new to you guys, in some ways, in some ways, how was the adoption for you guys?
Well, I mean, to your point, it was in our case, it was much more of a forced adoption. You know, everybody's going home, and when we say that, everybody starts going, "Oh, well, we're going to communicate via email," and but the forced adoption. I mean, I don't know that it went well, but I don't know that there was a choice. You know, when all of a sudden everybody has to figure out how to communicate, and we went through the growing pains of which platform are people using, and we've got 8 different platforms that might do this, and there are competitors to Teams that tried to do the right things and the wrong things. I think that the way Microsoft has integrated everything makes it make more sense.
Yeah.
I think that the phone system riding on top of Teams has been great. We went through at Plymouth. We went through a Teams migration with a Microsoft-based platform, and it was difficult because of the authentication methods that were required and some other things that were put in place. When we made that migration 6 months ago with G12, we were able to just flip a switch and everybody started working.
Yeah.
All their phones just started working. They were ringing at their desk. I think our biggest problem is we were running off of an even older legacy system, and everybody was not used to where their extensions were. They were, oh, I dial this one because that's where Rick is, and they'd get Brandon instead because we've now got a different extension system. That was probably our biggest hang up.
Got it. Michael, just to go back to your 800 and so employees, I mean, are they distributed everywhere? What does your organization structure look like?
Well, we have about 14 offices. Most of them are on the West Coast. A lot in Washington, Idaho, Oregon. We have an office in New Mexico, and so on and so on. But over the last couple of years, we've been hiring people throughout the country. So we have people on the East Coast, we have people in the South, we have people who just work at home, just like that. So, I mean, if you just count single locations, a couple hundred, single locations. If you count on people's houses.
Very good. Very good. Tell you what, this makes for a really exciting time for an organization. The ability to hire the best people, no matter where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, you get to use talent and hire talent and provide, opportunities for people to work. Right. And it doesn't matter where they're physically located these days. And in some cases, right. When in your case, specifically knowledge workers, and Tim, same knowledge workers, right. It's like you can hire people in just about anywhere. And that's a really amazing thing. I mean, as an organization, and I don't mention this typically on our podcast, but G12 Communications since day one, since 2011, has been a distributed organization. First, we were national in that we had employees all over the country, in I think 11 or 12 different states at the time, and nowadays we're much more of a global organization because we've got to follow the sunlight because we support 45 different countries. And so from a support perspective, our engineering team and support teams kind of circumvent the goal or work around the world. Anything to say to that, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, back to the pandemic and kind of being forced, to maybe adopt, whether it's Teams or some unified collaboration platform. I think there's one thing hopefully we can all agree on, and that's, one thing pandemic did do for us is it forced most organizations to adopt a more progressive strategy on collaboration, more unified strategy on collaboration. And then I think what it did is it it kicked that door down, or that barrier around the traditional processes that we follow to find that talent, bring that talent on board. And I know from just a G12 perspective, we're a Teams phone shop, right? We use Teams phone on our side. And, I have, starting this week into a couple weeks from now, we have 3 new, brand new employees coming on, ranging from, the Asia Pacific region of the world to the United States, where, now that we're a unified collaboration platform, my ability to maintain that compliance and deployment is literally tied to the user experience, that initial onboarding experience, where I now tie the user's email address to their authentication, to their communication and collaboration. And it makes for a very synced, beautiful onboarding experience for the customer, because you don't have to know what your phone number is. I don't have to provide that for you. I don't have to provide you 6 different systems to log into. I literally provide you, log into your computer with this, boom, Teams launches, there's their phone number. There's less things that I have to worry about from a corporate perspective.
I'd love to add a little bit to that in terms of being able, we have people working all over the Northwest. And in the past, we had to issue them a second phone. They had their personal phone, and then they had the work phone. And that was because they didn't want to expose their phone number. With the Teams phone, because of that and because of the integration, I don't have to issue 2 phones anymore. Yes, we're still paying them a stipend to have that phone, but I don't have an extra piece of equipment that we're worrying about. Where is it? What's going on? Is it connecting to? We have one piece. We can deal with, them and one device. They dial out through Teams. It looks like they're dialing out from their office phone.
Right.
Nobody would know the difference, except for the traffic noise or the cafe noise in the background, that they're anywhere but their office.
I've got a question. This is for both of you guys, and take G12 out of the picture for just a second. How did you both land on Teams being the requirement? Teams being this is kind of where I need to move my organization.
I'll go first. We like to think of ourselves as leading edge, but not bleeding edge, though sometimes we stumble into that area. And we knew by talking with our Microsoft rep that Teams calling was mature enough for us to do it then. So when we started looking for a new phone provider, we put Teams, the ability to use Teams calling, as one of our requirements on the RFP. We, as I said, basically we keep track of trending technology that we think is important. We try to bring that in.
I think
Interesting.
For us too, there were 2 parts. One, we're already an E5. We were already E5. So, to your point earlier, Rick, it's a no-brainer. We're already there. So it's easy to say, let's just utilize what we're already purchasing. Let's not add service, add a different thing that we have to pay for. But additionally, we were looking at it when Teams was growing at the beginning of the pandemic. The other company,
we won't say their name.
We all know the other company that starts with a Z. They came onto the market with a lot of features, and they were beating Teams because of features. But you could see how Microsoft was looking at it going, we're going to get that feature. We're going to get that feature. And they were stepping up on a monthly basis, adding those features, making sure that their platform was as feature rich as the others. And I think that is another part of what got us to go there, is that they're going to continue that research and development to make sure that they're not being beaten on the key pieces. Yeah,
I think with us, and it goes back to what Rick said before, we really see Teams as an ecosystem that people live in, and we were already using Teams inside of Teams to do like project management, and we would collaborate with outside vendors in there. We'd bring a vendor account into the team. We could share big files in there. And now our engineers and project managers are doing the same thing. We actually have teams for our different projects, which I mean, we have CAD drawings and all sorts of different things, and they're collaborating inside of these teams. So we wanted to stay inside that world, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Using it as your, I mean, as your it's real collaboration at that point, right? It's real collaboration in that if you've got a team and a department is all set up in a team, as an example, and you're sharing files across, your networks. I mean, everyone runs into, I mean, I can't even imagine CAD drawings. You could never email those things anywhere, right? I mean, I have a hard time emailing a PowerPoint. I mean, when I sent this PowerPoint today, I was, well, I wonder if it's big enough. We'll see if this is going to get through via email, right? So teams being able to collaborate with large files, particularly since organizations now are somewhat video heavy, audio heavy. There's a lot of heavy, media files being used for a lot of different reasons these days, and being able to collaborate inside of a single system. Yet, and voice becomes just an application that hangs off of that system, right? It makes it really simple, and it does create this ecosystem that provides a significant amount of productivity. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to run into, is this email going to get through or not? How do I figure out? Take time, right, to go figure out how to get a file to and from somewhere.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's do this, guys. I'm gonna pop up this this presentation here, because what I want to show, there's a question in here I'm going to ask, and what I want to do is I want to show you this Forrester report, and I'd like to see. I mean, do you agree or disagree? I mean, that's essentially what we're up against here. I want to, this is real life. Let's figure out if the rubber meets the road here, right? We've got this. Let's go down to, let's say, an SMB customer, because I think this SMB customer is 1,000 users and under. And so we're looking at just from a cost savings perspective. I mean, and I don't know if either one of you are involved with the cost associated with deploying Teams or the phone service, but how did deploying services compare to, and again, we try to take G12 out of this. So I'll try to remain as impartial as possible, but, taking that out of it, what, from a cost savings perspective, did you see, does anything here resonate with you? So we've got ROI,
for a couple of things. We were actually an E3 customer before we went up on Teams, and actually we stayed as an E3 customer for a couple of years, and we would just buy the extra items, the security items and things like that. Eventually, just the last time we did our EA, we went to E5 just because of the growth of Power BI and everything like that. But I mean, just on phones themselves, we don't have physical phones. I mean, that's tens of thousands of dollars right there that we're saving of either purchasing them or leasing them from somebody. So that's, I mean, that's it right there. On top of that, as far as support, I think it's quite a bit less because people are used to using Teams now, and it's pretty intuitive. I mean, we still have to do things like number changes and for new users and things like that.
I think for us, there is a savings. We were on age-old POTS lines coming into a PBX that then had extensions off of it, and we were spending thousands and thousands of dollars maintaining this system that only one person could do, and the parts were all used, but they were also quite expensive. By moving off and getting into Teams, we've removed all of that expense. We also have saved on our phone lines. Instead of having to have 4 business lines coming into a building, we have 1 line. So in that sense, it's saved us a lot of money just simply on the hardware and connectivity costs.
Well, this is. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tim, you brought up a point that actually I think it was last week on our webinar I had made mention of, and I don't think maybe even our listeners can appreciate the comment you just made about old school legacy TDM and how expensive that was. I mean, I know firsthand from a different work lifetime, that those circuits can run in the thousands a month by themselves.
Yeah.
Especially if they've been in place for multiple years and no one's done any kind of cost readjustment on those circuits, because they're just there, we'll just keep paying for them. That alone, for anyone listening that has a legacy TDM, you're gonna realize that savings just in that alone, getting rid of that TDM. I know it's easier for me to say that than to actually go do it, but it's significant when you make that change.
Here's what's in, and you guys, just because this is the world that you live in, but you guys may find this as a shocking statement here. But if you maybe you knew, maybe you didn't, but still something like 67 to 70% of the enterprise organizations out there still have legacy phone systems and and legacy style service. Right there, it's a significant amount of organizations that still have not adopted, even migrating into a SIP trunking / IPPBX environment, much less a Teams phone system environment, right? So there's still a lot of organizations out there that haven't made that move. Now, there's probably some good reason for some organizations. As an example, facility heavy organizations. I just got off a call with Microsoft as an example, right? Some facility heavy organizations, may find it, take a hospital, a significant, a large hospital, may find it difficult to rip and replace the iron that sits in their closets with all the handsets laid out across the organization and the red phones all throughout every hallway, right? So there's a lot of heavy sort of infrastructure there to support. And so I can think in those situations, it may be tougher to think about, hey, am I going to do my Teams phones? Are these all going to be Teams phones? Well, the reality is probably not, but there's solutions that fit, that where Teams comes in and fits over top. And this is the best visual I could come up with without a lack of a drawing. Brandon, where's my Visio?
This is the first time hearing it.
This is the
this
best
is how it
way I
always
can describe
goes.
it. That's right. This is the best way I could describe it, is that Teams could fit over top of an existing phone system. I'll use my phone as an existing phone system, right? Yeah, you're a Avaya, Cisco, Mitel. Teams just bolts right on here, and you could literally have phone calls delivered to those devices in a single day, right? It's literally taking the functionality of an existing PBX and cascading that functionality out to the soft phones via PC and or mobile devices. So those sorts of solutions are things that we do when we deal with an organization that has that heavy infrastructure. But I still find it crazy that, that legacy stuff is still out there in a really significant way. So Microsoft categorizes the savings here, as I say Microsoft, I'm sorry, Forrester categorizes the savings as cost savings from retiring the legacy phone system. So that's pretty significant, right? And both of you gentlemen would agree with that. Reduced telephony support. And both of you gentlemen would agree with that those are areas of savings that you've seen. And then improved integration and communication. Now, Michael, you've explained to us how your organization now works cohesively within Teams, and therefore there is and or should be some time allotment associated with productivity. And that's where they start to put, they actually did put in the study an hourly rate associated with the savings of time and productivity. So that's where the quantifiable savings comes into play. What's interesting is this, though, this next slide. Brandon, why don't you talk about that one?
We got to see the next slide. Here we go. Yeah, I mean, I think I speak to point number one all the time. I think every webinar we get on, it's the continuity and the ability to deploy compliance right out of the gate is a huge value add to businesses, even if they don't really realize it yet. And that's being able to take, like I just mentioned, us bringing on our new employees and being able to really do a single provisioning process in one silo that's guardrailed by my security components, and deploying that out to the business. And when it comes time for audits, in healthcare, obviously audits are really big for security, and it's becoming more and more important even in just the business, the standard small business space, just because we live in that time. it makes getting that compliance met so much easier, so much quicker, and it reduces your cost. Again, you're not spending hours and hours of time explaining how you get that security and continuity around 6 applications. Now you're explaining it one time for your Active Directory deployment.
Sure.
And obviously, then with that comes happier employees, because they're learning to use one application for their day to day, instead of, okay, I need you to use this app for chat, I need you to use this app for phone calls, I need you to use this app for SMS, or whatever the case may be. And I can actually name companies. I won't, but I could name companies that it blows my mind away that they're still using Slack for one arm of their business, Teams for another arm of their business, and a mix and match of, dare I say, Yahoo Messenger for another aspect. And it just
is that still a thing?
I believe it or not, it is. And it kind of baffles my mind that a company that, and I'm not talking about a small company here, I'm talking about a really, really big company.
You're going to say MySpace next.
Yeah. No. Well, we're live streaming on MySpace, I think, right? Can you imagine being an employee where you have to pivot from Teams to Slack to Yahoo Messenger, keeping track of I'm talking to Bob, he's on Slack. Now I'm going to go talk to Joan, and she's on Yahoo. You're going to have some employees that just, they're not happy about that. They can't keep track of what they're doing. And so
the question then, sorry, I don't mean to go ahead, Brandon. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think when you start bringing it all into, in this case, in this conversation, the Teams ecosystem, you bring that continuity together, you guardrail your security practice, and by doing all of that, you're naturally going to have the happier employees, and then again, happier customers, because there's a single pane that your customers are being approached from.
Sure.
So a question then, happier employees, let's just ask you guys. I mean, this is the stuff that we don't make up, but it comes out because this is what they think. And this is great to get validation on. Do you feel like your employees are communicate better in a more effective way, and therefore are happier in their workplace, at least when it comes to the communications perspective? I mean, and their tools that you provide to them.
I would say yes, they're happier. Again, I think part of it is just overall being able to have one place. I don't have to Brandon's point. You don't have to think about where I'm going. Am I communicating with marketing today? So now we're going to use Slack, or we're communicating with the janitors, and now we've got to use paper messages. They all know they've got to look into the system. They all get the information on their cell phone, and they're able to move on. I mean, I keep coming back to cell phone and the ability to do this mobily. My workforce, we have 14 different buildings, and we've got probably 50, 60 people who are going each of these buildings in different times, different places. They don't have the ability to sit down at that single machine to do everything. They're able to then do it mobily and anywhere.
Yeah.
And when they get back to their machine, that information's still there.
Yeah, but
it isn't, I'm not using IMing on my phone that never gets back to a central system. By being able to use that chat and that phone call messaging in my phone, they're able to be much more productive, and I believe happier.
Yeah. So I just want to mention this, and I know we talked about this, I think, when we were doing our live in London with a couple other guys. One of the things that I found really interesting in this Forrester report was the mobile users that you're referring to, Tim. The amount of time that they bring back as efficiency. So the amount of time saved because they have that convenience at their fingertips. And it was something like an hour and a half per week of time saved, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but that adds up over a year, right? That's 52 hours. Let's just call it 52 hours for an easy math number. That's over a work of gained time of efficiency on an employee, right? That's significant when you think about
Mhm.
it.
I'll just second that or even triple it. One factor we haven't mentioned, one, one feature we haven't talked about before is the ability to jump between your computer and your phone. So I, a couple of weeks ago, I had a call scheduled, a leadership call, but I wasn't in the office, so I took the call in my car, and I was driving home for that. I was talking on my phone in the Teams meeting, with that, and then I got home before the call was over, walked over to my computer and switched internally on the phone, on the cell phone to the computer. Easy peasy. It just flipped over. That's or you can do it the other way. If you're taking a call on your computer, you can switch easily to your cell phone and just take it that way. There was something else I was going to mention about calling. Oh, I mean, yeah. If you're working on your computer and you're doing like an internal meeting, you have your headset on. There's no need to change anything, like headset, to take a call from a client. It's the same headset, it's the same system. Instead of taking your headset off, answering the phone, picking up a handset or something like that.
Yeah, having that distinction in personas and keeping your business on here, and having the ability to multitask, and using your same device, that comes in handy quite a bit for me, because as you can imagine, I'm always on a call here, and every now and then I'll get another call in, and I can either duck out of a meeting if I need to, or a call comes in my mobile device, or I need to switch over to my mobile device. It's all the same. It's all the same. And
Mhm.
just because Enterprise Connect was a show that was down in Florida this past week, or this week. Um, and I didn't show up there. I didn't go. However, I saw all the new equipment coming out. There, the manufacturers out there delivering service or delivering devices, like there's Jabra and Yealink and some Crestron stuff, and some, even Cisco now is including Teams, Team software on their devices, which is crazy. It seems like an art, a war coming to an end there, where Cisco is now allowing Teams on their devices. The devices are fantastic now. They really make for ease of use. I mean, the headsets are lighter and clear,
Mhm.
and have have high definition sound, and so all the devices coming out specific to Teams just make our work life significantly easier. There's one thing that we don't touch on a lot in our conversations, and we should at some point. This won't be the call for it, but MTRs are the Teams meeting rooms. The amount of really simplified equipment that is, that is very highly functional, that's coming out, is amazing, and it makes for just this seamless work environment. It's like when I listened to Satya had this his AI, the Copilot, launched, and there was this symbiosis word that he used. I thought was pretty cool, where man and machine coexist, right? And this is like the equipment in your daily work life are becoming more symbiotic, if you will, right? It's like it's flowing with you nicely now, and this is so sort of kumbaya-esque, but it's working much better now, the equipment, because if you can remember the days, and both you gentlemen have been in technology for a long time, you walk into a room and not everyone knows how to use the here's the remote for the projector, and here's the remote for the TV, and you connect your HDMI cable, and I got to be on this channel to get this displayed on my screen. Those days are coming to an end, right? Because the equipment out there is far more efficient to use. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
That is a lesson learned for us. It pays to invest in good equipment for headphones, uh, webcams. During the pandemic, we were restrained by the supply chain, and we basically just took what we could get. But it comes back to haunt you if you buy the $1.99 headset. That really comes back to haunt you with customer issues with that. So we stick with Logitech, with Jabra, and things like that. It's
Oh,
much
beautiful.
better.
Yeah, and they're all Logi and Jabra both are again coming out with just amazing technology. We just had a Jabra influencer, their chief video evangelist, on our last show, and he was showing us their Panacast 50 devices and some of their headsets and their speaker phones and it just really amazing equipment that's coming out to make our work life easier. I went ahead and changed the slide on us because I want to ask you guys about some of these communication priorities. Now, this wasn't out of the report. This is out of a show where Brandon and I attended in London a few weeks ago, where telecom leaders came together, and this was a slide that struck me as interesting. And this was a really good opportunity for us to ask you, the customers, does this resonate, right? And so I look at this, and both of you are under over 250 employees, and what you are looking for in a solution, in a communication solution, and what are your priorities as a business, essentially. And number one here on this 250 and above here is easier business growth or contraction through scalable telecom. So easy to scale. And Michael, you guys are scaling, right?
Great. We just added 2 new offices in the last maybe 2 months, and it was easy. We didn't have to worry about phones. We didn't have to worry about phone lines. We just ported over the existing lines over to our account, and the people were up and working with teams.
I'm going to use your word from earlier, easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Yeah. So Tim, are you guys in a growth mode? Tim, are you guys growing?
Growth mode. We're opening 2 new buildings a year, which means that we're not expanding through acquisition. We're building fresh, which means that we create a new user and we put a checkbox in our creation process, and all of that stuff just happens. One of the things I'm looking forward to, or in conversation with you, Rick, is the opportunity to move where all of our teams, all of our phone system is that Teams phone. And that way, when I create a new user, it just happens. All the things downstream fill out. I put in a phone number for that person, and we're done.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, because right now, there are a couple steps in. Oh yeah, we've got to, ask for this person to be added, have the user created. But I think that in the next, year, we're going to see that even become simpler. And I think that that's going to be, it goes all the way back over to make it easier for our employees to work from anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can just create a user. They can literally start in one building, move to another building, and then potentially be put into that third new building on day one and sit down at their computer, use their cell phone, and work.
One of the things that we didn't talk about really is, and this is in number 2 here, this disaster recovery, right? And there's a Y missing from there, but this disaster recovery, interesting. It's like you almost take it for granted now, where and maybe you don't. I mean, I know I probably do, but you almost take it for granted now that once upon a time, if you had a phone system at work and it went down or power went out or something went out, your phones were down, right? In today's world, everyone's got, you've got your mobile here, and should something physical happen at the office, it just really doesn't matter anymore. Like there's so many ways to take that call and to divert that call. It makes for, a disaster recovery is just, it's pretty simple these days, right? Voice being a packet, you just move it anywhere you want.
Exactly.
All right. And then the last one here, better analytics and automation of the customer journey. So that's one where, analytics about utilization, and gentlemen, I don't know if you guys know this yet, because Teams is, Tim, you said something earlier that resonated with me. And when it was when we were discussing how you made the decision that Teams was going to be your system, right? You were going to roll Teams. And one of the things that you said was that you had the ability. I sort of lost my train of thought here now. Darn it! Better analytics, automation of customer journey. I'll have to come back to it. Totally lost it. I took too long to deliver that. That's going to resonate with my fiance because
the wind up and
the,
the
and the
fumble.
drop. That's right. Okay. Oh, here we go. Better analytics. So here's what you said earlier was that Microsoft was rolling out features quick. I mean, it's like every week new features are rolling out, and we see that pretty regularly. I mean, Brandon's, in front of all of the latest 911 developments as an example. If you're listening out there, 911 is critical, and there's some cool changes coming to teams from a 911 perspective that's going to make the compliance responsibilities much easier. And so the feature rollouts. Good, Brandon.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think even Michael, you mentioned, you had kind of decided to move to E5 licenses because of the Power BI.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So obviously, I think 3 probably resonates, right? You're obviously looking to Microsoft for Power BI, which to me says you're looking at analytic data of some sort. Mm-hmm. And so again, the value add that we see here is, you get to leverage that at the same time as making it your phone system, your single point of collaboration, and the value add is just there.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, sure. There's some cool reports in that stuff. There's here's one that I find quite interesting is the auto attendant statistics that you can pull out, and I think that's in Power BI, Brandon. There's a template for it in Power BI, but basically the auto attendant statistics show you how your customer behaves when they're in your auto attendant. Okay, so it's not your typical call center. Let me just measure my calls. It's really the behavior before the call gets delivered, right? The behavior that your caller is experiencing within your automated attendant. So you can determine if you're sending them to the right place, if they're spending too much time deciding, if maybe the options aren't quite right for them, right? So you can decide those things. So those are some of the templates that are available in Power BI that pull right from Microsoft Teams as an interface. Or as the phone system there. So better analytics across the board starts to create the ability for you to generate an improved customer journey, right? So
Sure.
So those, I guess, and so if, I guess just a yes no question then essentially. So all these components here that are listed for 250 employees and above resonate with you, gentlemen.
Yeah. I'd say all 9 of these resonate in some way, shape, or form. And you focused on the last 3, but you look at the other 6 and those are all great. I mean, those are all critical to us.
Very good. Very good. Well, you're not alone. There's some CIO quotes here. Having everything in one platform is highly efficient and encourages more communication, more collaboration, and it's easy to implement and use. So there's a nice quote there from a financial services organization, director of technology and healthcare organization. Teams is rock solid and reliable. Quality is strong. The management configurability is easy because it's all that single pane of glass in M365 world. So there's, again, it's we're hitting on all the right stuff, and it's interesting as an organization that delivers this service, we try to convey this story to everyone we talk to, and it's almost like you want to get on your desk and you want to shout, and you just wish that there was an audience you could shout to. This is as close as it gets right here, where we can shout and saying, if you're an organization that has a legacy phone system or even a legacy cloud phone system, Microsoft Teams as the phone system is a significantly it is a significantly better platform these days. It is a really, really good platform. And as it doesn't matter if you're a 10-person organization or if you are a 10,000 user organization, the beauty is that you as a 10-person organization get the same exact features and services that a 10,000 user organization gets. And it's typically, it's like unheard of, right? Because if you're buying a Cisco, if you're a hospital buying a Cisco, that 10 user shop isn't buying a Cisco because that thing is, $200,000 or $300,000, right? And they're not getting the features in that big Cisco platform, which is no longer that feature rich compared to Microsoft Teams. But now you're buying on a, Brandon, what did you call it the other day, on a consumption basis?
Yeah, it's a consumption model, but you have the same, for the most part, you have the same buying power as the largest organizations in the world. Remove volume-based licensing, but for the most part, it's I can go, me individually, personally, I can go buy that Teams phone license or that E5 for the same price that most of your SMBs are going to be paying, that even some of your larger enterprises are going to be paying. Right? It takes the competitive favoritism out, if you will.
Yeah. Well, it's no wonder that Teams is the leader in the space. You can see the numbers here: 280 million active daily users. The leader in the Magic Quadrant for UCaaS, and then last 12 months they added over 5 million phone users. Those stats are growing daily. I think they're sitting somewhere closer to 20 million subscribers now for PSTN, and it's a force that is rightfully the leader in the industry. And most times you want to fight against something that's the behemoth, and that's the legacy or whatever it is. You want to fight against that. But in my case, I'm a UCaaS guy. I've been a UCaaS guy from since we started G12 in 2011, and then you look at this and you go, why don't we just embrace this? Because this is phenomenal. And as a professional, I can no longer say, hey, don't get into Teams. Teams, I look at Teams and go, hey, why are you not in Teams? It's shocking to me that you're not in Microsoft Teams. It just offers way too much from a business perspective. Let's see here. What's our next slide? So real quick, this is a part where I explain what Operator Connect is. Or Brandon, why don't you explain what Operator Connect is, and you can take us through that.
Yeah, I mean, Operator Connect, obviously, I think is Microsoft's next generation solution to Microsoft Teams phone system, right? Where traditionally it's been direct routing, and then Microsoft came along and did their Teams calling plan, and not to take those off the table, but I think what Microsoft recognized was, hey, why don't we let the telecom operators do what they're good at, and let's just allow the operators to come in, connect, certify to our phone system, and now let's open that up to the marketplace and allow the consumer to, if you've already got a relationship with, say, G12, you can now just keep that relationship with G12, and you can seamlessly and automatically plug it into your Teams phone system. So really, it's kind of that next generation of, Tim, I think, was mentioning how he's looking to that next step of, how do I automate the entire journey of a new employee to I click one button and they have phone service. That's really what, at least at G12, we're after, is providing that seamless transition to Teams with one click of a button.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, you said some word, automate, that made my ears perk up, because, in every show I start to mention a couple of different things, and gentlemen, this may be new to you guys, and this is something for you to look at, but this is not automation in general, but there's something called Azure Communication Services and something called Power Automate. And those two services are so powerful, and I feel like it's certainly not utilized at the extent it's going to be utilized in the next 12 to 18 months. However, what that does, what not Power Automate, but what Azure Communication Services does, is externalize your communication and collaboration features in Microsoft Teams, right? So if you can imagine text from the outside world, or automated sort of text and chat and video and calling, if you could imagine those being externalized, let's say on your website, okay, and people able to communicate with you externally via a website, and have that brought into your Teams interface internally, right? So what that does is allow these developers to create automated tools for you that allow that communication platform to securely bring that communication into your team's environment. So it's pretty exciting to think
cool.
about the tools that could be made. I mean, obviously there's the chatbots out there and there's all those sorts of things. It takes it to the next level because it delivers it right into your team's interface. And then the automation that is on Power Automate really is a workflow builder to go between multiple applications, right? And bring things back into Teams if needed. And so those tools together with Microsoft Teams Phone, I always, my thing is I tell people that Teams Phone is the beginning of your business productivity. And it just is, because now you can go create real productivity tools and workflows that allow you to automate a lot of things. So that gets me all excited about stuff. Anyway, all right. Last thing, and then we'll see if there's any questions from any of the audience. But the last thing is we'll talk about our path to Teams. We've got the T-shirt on today, Path to Teams, and that's the the path to Teams is essentially for you Microsoft CSMs out there listening. This is what's interesting here. If you've got those legacy organizations that have heavy infrastructure yet want to be brought into Microsoft Teams, we overlay our direct routing that brings essentially Microsoft Teams to an Avaya, to a Cisco, to a Mitel. And here's the kicker. It delivers the functionality that phone system has into your Microsoft Teams application on your phone. So really, if you're tied up in telecom contracts, as an example, and you can't move to Microsoft Teams, well, you can still use Microsoft Teams in a granular way, if you'd like, or in a what is it called? Walk, run, whatever it is sort of way, right? When you crawl, walk, run, when you just start out, right? You can deploy Teams and have the people that you want in Teams with your existing legacy equipment to start out with. Right. And so that's kind of the first step that we take with some of these organizations that really want Teams, but are tied up. And then at some point, we move them into a Teams Phone / Operator Connect environment when it makes sense for them. But at least at G12, we provide this whole sort of path to Teams, as we can give you multiple solutions to get you into Microsoft Teams, which we think, again, is probably the best platform out there. Okay. Any questions from the audience? We'll give them a little bit to respond to any questions they may have, or ask any questions they may have. I'll take this back to, actually, I'll just turn the slide off. I'll stop the share there, and we'll see if anyone has any questions. You've got some leadership in IT here in organizations that have deployed Teams and are working with it today. If you've got some questions, now is a great time to ask. And then, Brandon, what do you have for us?
Well, I was going to put these guys on the spot, and if you don't have an answer, that's fine. Just maybe if you had food for thought for our listeners on they've got a legacy phone system, they want to go to Teams, they're not sure how to get there, or maybe they know how to get there, they just don't know what the gotchas are. What's one little nugget that you would offer someone like that? Like, let's say it's me and I got this phone system and I say, hey, I want to get to Teams. What's something I should be aware of, or what's a challenge I should be aware of? Or is it really as easy as these guys on this webinar are making it sound?
I'll go first. It is easy. And I mean, especially if you find a good vendor, and you didn't ask me to say this, but G12 is a great vendor and a great partner to work with. The one gotcha, and this isn't exactly with Teams Voice. The one thing we found is with Teams, there's a lot going on with Teams. You got video, you got all this different processing going on, and we've had to beef up our computers. We want our engineers and people to have beefy computers. We've had to up the RAM, up the processor, but we probably would have done that anyway. And Microsoft is actually fixing this, from what I understand. There's a new Teams version coming out, which is supposedly lighter and not as processor intensive. I wouldn't call it a downside, but we've definitely had to beef up our laptops to make sure everybody gets a good experience.
Yeah, I can relate. Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'd go back to something that Michael said earlier around devices or connective, your headphones and your microphones. The big gotcha for me was don't go cheap. If you cheap out on that piece of this connectivity, your user experience, your employee experience is going to be bad.
Yeah,
And what I sold to my COO was simply, look, when we buy headphones for $100 and a quarter with a microphone on them that are really good, we didn't spend $175 on a phone.
yeah, and
It's that trade-off.
Yeah.
And that resonates, especially with me, because I interact with our customers day in and day out, and it's amazing how a cheap headset becomes the reputation of the vendor. In this case, Microsoft. And it's often that we so easily overlook the devices.
Yeah. I love how, Michael, I got to tell you, that's fantastic that you brought that up, and we're right at the top of the hour. So we're going to stop here just a second. But I got so excited when you said Microsoft's coming out with a newer, lighter version, and we've been hearing about that all week, and we test drove it. I think it's in preview now. But seeing it and looking at it, it's an amazing looking new feel. I think it's going to be fantastic. There's so much going on, and then back to the features, there's so much going on, not just inside Teams now, but with their feature releases, the 911 update. There's a whole list of updates that have come out in the last 30 days that it's really exciting to see all these new changes take effect, and seeing when the GA date is. There's a lot of updates. So gentlemen, I do want to say thank you so much for your time. This has been a great opportunity for us to, validate what you get from research, and validate what we hear from others, and then validate what Microsoft tells everyone, to really kind of, again, put the saying is, was it the rubber meets the road, and you guys let us know exactly how it works. And we certainly appreciate you guys taking the hour out with us this afternoon.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks.
Very
I gotta
good.
drop off.
Okay, very good, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care,
Thanks, guys.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.